They always knew long before I did. They knew not with their mouths. No, no, they knew with silence, with glances that lingered too long, with steps that stopped just short of mine, with the way their breath caught when I entered a room. They didn't say it, they felt it, and so did I, but I was too young to name it, too human to understand what haunted me. I thought it was shame. I thought I was cursed. I thought maybe I was the problem, but it was never weakness they felt. It was disruption. It was something ancient, something foreign, something not of this world. 12 oracles saw it, not in temples, not in scrolls. They saw it in me. They whispered of an aura that flickered like black fire, too dark to be divine, too bright to be ignored. They called it an omen, a rift in fate, a tear in the pattern of the meek. They didn't understand it, so they feared it. And what man fears, he buries. So they buried me, in mockery, in silence, in the shallow grave of being too much. But the oracles never forgot. They watched, from shadows, they waited, for the day the wind would shift, and that thing I carried would rise, because it wasn't mortal. It wasn't bound by blood, or rules, or time. It wasn't raised by kindness. It wasn't caged by names. It simply was a force, a curse, a prophecy with no mouth to speak until I became its voice. I remember the first time I noticed, the first time the air around me turned still, the first time someone looked into my eyes and looked away too fast. They didn't see a person. They saw a reckoning, a silent storm, not loud, not wild, just inevitable. They say when gods arrive, they shake the sky, but I didn't come from the sky. I fell through it and landed too hard for the world to ignore. 12 oracles saw my aura, and none of them dared to lie, because truth, no matter how terrifying, demands to be known. And now, the whispers are growing louder. The storm is remembering my name. They didn't hate me for being wrong. They hated me for being too much right, too loud when I should have whispered, too sharp when they preferred dull, too intense when they were only built for mild. I was never born to blend in, and they knew it. That's why they tried to break me before I ever stood tall. They didn't try to understand me. They tried to contain me, like fire behind glass, like thunder under blankets, like a storm forced to smile. I was told I needed to tone it down, that I was too dramatic, too emotional, too passionate. No one ever told them they were too small to hold me. You think I didn't notice the way rooms changed when I walked in? The fake smiles, the glances, the polite silence. No one ever said it, but I heard it loud. There's something off about them, something too much. They couldn't label it, so they called it broken. They couldn't cage it, so they called it dangerous. But I was never the danger. Their fear was, their fear of the unknown, of the unpredictable, of someone who wouldn't play by their fragile rules. I gave too much, felt too deep, loved too hard, spoke too loud, stood too firm. So they turned me into a villain, just so they could sleep peacefully beside their own mediocrity. I was punished for passion, sentenced for strength, exiled for essence. They told me, you're too intense. But all I ever did was show up in my full form. They called it a curse, but it was never mine. It was theirs. The curse of witnessing something uncontainable and knowing you'll never be able to replicate it. So they left, one by one, calling me toxic, difficult, cold. But I was just raw, unfiltered, unapologetically alive. And in a world that worships fake light, real fire is treated like a threat. Let them whisper. Let them spin their stories. Let them warn others about me, because I no longer bleed for those who flinch at the sight of real blood. I no longer dim for those who fear brilliance. I was not too much. They were too little, too quiet, too slow, too safe. And now that I've stopped apologizing for existing, I'm dangerous in ways they were right to fear. This is what happens when you exile a soul meant to lead kingdoms. It returns, not to fit in, but to take over. Let them regret. Let them pray. I'm not what they wanted. I'm what they dreaded. And I'm just getting started. They wanted me to rise, politely, to smile through the blood, to thank the world for handing me knives, while they watch me bleed out in silence. But I didn't rise the way they hoped. I didn't ascend with elegance. I crawled through my own ashes, screaming, burning, becoming. While they were sleeping peacefully in their illusions, I was up at war with myself, every night, every breath. They partied. I planned. They laughed. I listened. They rested. I rebuilt. No cheering crowd, no gentle hands, just silence, and the sound of my ribs cracking under pressure, bones realigning to fit the creature I was becoming. You think I trained for glory? You think I wanted admiration? No, I trained so I wouldn't break when they finally came for me. I trained so that every scar would speak louder than their lies. I trained because I knew the storm wouldn't knock. It was already inside me. My knuckles bled against stone walls. My breath came in broken shards. My muscles tore again and again, rebuilding into something unrecognizable. They called it self-destructs. I called it evolution. I didn't heal. I mutated. They saw the darkness growing behind my eyes, and they looked away, afraid, because somewhere deep inside, they knew I wasn't climbing back for acceptance. I was climbing to never kneel again. This wasn't a montage. It wasn't a highlight reel. It was nights of staring at ceilings, begging for silence inside my skull. It was rage boiling under skin, controlled only by purpose. They wanted a phoenix, something pretty that burns, then glows. But I wasn't born to burn. I was born to consume. You want to know what it takes? It takes breaking yourself on purpose. It takes dying while still breathing. It takes holding your own corpse in your arms and saying, "Not yet. Not like this." I didn't become strong because I wanted to. I became strong because I had to. Because every time I tried to be soft, the world used it as a weapon. Every time I showed kindness, it came back as a scar. So I stopped apologizing. I stopped flinching. I stopped trying to fit in cages meant for lesser things. And now they see it. Now they whisper, "She's changed. He's different. They're not the same." You're damn right I'm not. I wasn't built for smallness. I wasn't designed to be liked. I was born for war, and I trained for revenge. Let them talk. Let them doubt. Let them hope you stayed broken. Because when you finally rise, and you will, you'll rise ugly. You'll rise scarred. You'll rise like a monster they can't unsee. The ascent was never meant to be pretty. It was meant to be undeniable. They tried to erase the prophecy. But prophecies don't die, they wait. They sleep beneath the noise. They pulse under the skin of time, whispering through bloodlines, aching to awaken. And I was never born. I was summoned. Long before you mocked me. They saw me. 12. Eyes like mirrors. Blacker than night. Older than language. They didn't flinch. They knelt. One of them stepped forward. Spoke only once. This one is not bound by earth. This one does not end. The others trembled. Not at what she said. At what it meant. Because I wasn't supposed to exist. Not like this. Not this loud. Not this free. Not this UNCONTAINABLE. So they buried her voice, burned the scrolls, destroyed the records, and built temples to silence, hoping I would never hear my name echo in their bones. But you can't silence fate. You can only delay the scream, because even under centuries of lies, my name didn't fade. It festered. And now the ground cracks beneath me, because that buried truth, it's clawing out of its grave, wearing my face. You tried to mold me, label me, tame me, but I was not made to obey your structure. I am the glitch in your system, the god inside the storm, the prophecy they feared, because it meant the end of their world. They didn't fear a monster. They feared a mirror, because I am everything they couldn't kill. Now their temples crumble, their truths bleed, and their silence, it knels. So go ahead, lie again, hide again, run again. But remember this, you erased the prophecy. But I became it, and I never forget. I tried. God, I tried to smile the way they liked, to fold myself into their boxes, to soften my voice so it wouldn't echo too loud in their fragile little minds. I tried to make them comfortable with me, to make my fire burn quieter, my eyes dimmer, my presence smaller. But no matter how much I broke myself to fit their mold, they still flinched, still whispered, still pointed and pulled away like I was too much of something they couldn't name. They didn't want me whole. They wanted me harmless. They wanted me delicate, silent, predictable, palatable. But I am not your calm. I am not your compromise. I am not what you hoped I'd be. I am not your redemption arc. I am not the soft-spoken savior you begged the heavens to deliver. I am not the character you can rewrite to make your story feel safe. Again, I am chaos wrapped in skin. I am the storm you thought you'd already survived, and now you realize that was just the thunder. I am the lightning you wanted, someone easy to forgive, someone who'd take the blows and still bow politely, someone who would shrink to survive. But I grew fangs. You didn't break me. You built me. With every lie, every shove, every damn time. You looked at me like I was unworthy of being here. You think I'm cruel? I learned cruelty from the ones who smiled while cutting me open. You think I'm cold? I froze in the silence you left me in and turned that ice into armor. I am not what you prayed I'd become. I am not humble. I am not quiet. I am not sorry. And the truth is, I was never meant to be. I was never built for their comfort, never sculpted to make them feel safe. I am not their hero. I am not their villain. I am the reckoning they never saw coming. Look at me now, not broken, not lost, not waiting for permission. I have stopped bleeding for people who never learned to handle blood. I have stopped whispering in rooms where I should have been roaring. I am not your fantasy, not your apology, not your second chance. I am everything you feared I'd become. And worse, I'm awake. You wanted a puppet. I gave you a god. You wanted silence. I became a scream they'll hear in every lifetime. So don't ask me to bend. Don't ask me to beg. Don't ask me to return to the ashes I once crawled out of. Because I'm not what you hoped I'd be. I am more. And I will never make myself smaller again. They thought I'd stay quiet, that I'd stay small, that I'd swallow their poison with a smile and beg for more. They mistook my silence for surrender. They called it humility. But what they didn't know was that the God inside me had only just started to stir. Every insult was an offering, every betrayal a ritual. Every time they looked at me and saw nothing, they were feeding the very thing they feared. You see, I stopped praying for mercy. I started listening to the fire inside my bones, and it whispered, burn louder. They told me I was too much, too intense, too sharp, too dangerous. And they were right, because I was never built to fit their cages. I was made to break them, let them run, let them scramble, let them clutch their pearls and point their fingers. Let them try to unsee what's rising. But it's too late now. The storm they joked about, the one they said would never come, it's here, and I am the storm. This isn't revenge. This is reckoning, a sacred return, a divine correction. You called it ego. It was prophecy. You called it madness. It was clarity. You called it darkness. It was the truth, and it terrified you. I won't beg to be understood. I won't kneel to be accepted. I won't dim so your world feels comfortable. They had their chance to listen, to learn, to walk beside me. But they laughed, they mocked, they threw stones at the temple, not realizing I was the altar. So let them run. Let them run and whisper prayers to gods who've long since turned away. Because this time, the God they ignored is walking among them. I no longer chase peace. I carry war. I no longer explain. I exist loud, whole, untouchable. I was never meant to be part of their world. I was meant to shake it. Let them scream. Let them break. Let them drown in the tide they tried to hold back. Because I'm not just rising. I've already risen. And now they don't get to escape what they woke up. Let them run. Let them fear. Let them fall. The God inside me just woke up. And he's not going back to sleep. They prayed for time. I consumed it. They feared death. I befriended it. They worshiped their kings. But I was never meant to kneel. They were fragile things. Bones wrapped in borrowed confidence. Always running from the truth. That their power was borrowed. That their peace was temporary. That their thrones were built on sand. I watched them rot behind smiles. Drown in approval. Crack under pressure they called privilege. I stood alone, not because I was weak, but because they could never withstand what I carried. You see, they were trying to survive the storm, but I was the storm, the prophecy, the silence between, heartbeats that made the brave flinch. And now they want to rewrite the story. They want to forget the warnings, forget the signs, but truth doesn't die in shadows. It waits. And tonight, it awakens. I didn't come this far to blend in. I didn't rise just to be seen. I was never here to be liked. I was here to be remembered, to shake their foundations, to make them feel every ounce of what they tried to bury. Let them panic. Let them scramble for their scriptures and science and safety. Let them reach for names that won't save them. They were mortal, and I was never meant to be. I am the curse they whispered about, the flame they tried to smother, the God they never saw coming. And now, I don't walk among them. I tower above them. They write histories. I write eternity. They feared the end, but I can the end. Let them speak. Let them pray. Let them fall. I don't need their crown, because I became the sky, and no mortal reaches the sky without learning how to burn. They don't cheer, they don't speak, they just stare, like ghosts caught in the shadow of something too massive to name. That's what happens after the storm. No applause, no banners, just silence, and I wear it like a crown. I didn't rise to be liked. I didn't fight to be followed. I never begged to be understood. I rose, so no one could look down on me again. I bled, so no blade could ever make me flinch. I shattered, so I'd never fear breaking again. Now they whisper my name like a prayer they don't believe in, like a curse they're too afraid to speak aloud. But it's too late for prayers, too late for regrets. They wrote me off. They laughed. They hoped I'd disappear. Now they build monuments to my silence. You want justice? This is justice. I gave them fire, and they gave me ashes. Now I walk alone, crowned not in gold, but in the hush of every voice that once tried to bury me. Let them stay silent, because their silence, that is my victory, that is my crown.